Yeah, definitely. I think some of the interesting stuff we've seen so far heading into the end of the year has been definitely more demand for leverage from folks. So trading shops, exchanges, hedge funds, we're seeing a lot of borrow demand. We're also seeing a lot of interest in new stable coins coming through. So is positive for DeFi is, you have the potential change in regulatory leadership, which really was a bit of a dampener on growth and development and adoption of DeFi over 2022 and 2023. So I think that's what I look at as somebody who's in the DeFi sector as a real positive catalyst and why I think DeFi will re-rate. You also have the president-elect had launched a DeFi protocol. What you're able to do with options is either generate yield on your Bitcoin position by doing call overriding, or without actually putting much of your balance sheet in, you can get that upside exposure through the purchase of call options or the use of puts to kind of hedge your downside. So that is really what an options instrument like IBIT opens up here.
Stablecoins are revolutionizing crypto, but with so many options flooding the market, which ones will survive? Sid Powell breaks down why new stablecoins are booming and which players will dominate in 2025. Get ready for explosive insights that could change the way you think about crypto forever.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of the interesting stuff we've seen so far heading into the end of the year has been definitely more demand for leverage from folks. So trading shops, exchanges, hedge funds, we're seeing a lot of borrow demand. We're also seeing a lot of interest in new stable coins coming through. So you've seen, I think Binance the other day launched a new one that's going to be tied to delta neutral positions. And so as a company involved in the lending space, we see a lot of interest in that. And then also just a lot of momentum around DeFi coming through. I think particularly as we head into the end of the year and the possibility of regulatory change, that's definitely top of mind for folks. It indicates early bullish sentiment. So what you're seeing is that folks are looking to borrow so that they can get leverage in their positions. And so this means that they want to be further long large caps like Bitcoin, Solana, ETH. And so they're looking to post those as collateral in order to borrow dollars and buy more or lever up those positions. So that's been a really strong trend that we've seen really since the election, and even indeed in the weeks heading into the election. So it's generally means bullish for the space, and you're seeing that in basis that is really repriced upwards. I'm certainly no expert when it comes to calling the tops of price action, but I think my target for Bitcoin over this cycle in 2025 would be 150 to 180, and then we see a lot of interest from folks. I think previously it would have been in Ethereum, but really Solana has picked up a lot of interest just given the momentum that it has enjoyed over the past few weeks. And so I would say if you wanted lower volatility, you go into Bitcoin, but if you wanted to pick up higher growth, I would be going into Solana. And I think I've heard people call potential price tops in 2025 of 450 to 500 on Solana. It's a good question. I think what is the tailwind for Ethereum is that it continues to be the place where most of the liquidity is. If you look at almost all DeFi projects, including us, typically most of the liquidity and most of the TVL is on Ethereum. So I think that generally buoys the price action. However, when it comes to roadmap, you do hear a lot of criticism about delays. And I think that has shifted some of the focus towards coins like Solana, and that's where ecosystems like Solana have benefited because they're perceived as moving faster and shipping more rapidly. But I do think Ethereum obviously has a lot of mind share, and so that's not something to dismiss. So I wouldn't be bearish on Ethereum, I think, but I just think momentum lies elsewhere. Ethereum base and Solana are where we see most of the building at the moment, but when it comes to challenger ecosystems, the dark horse that I continue to hear a lot about is the TON ecosystem. I think there's been a lot of interest there, particularly given it has a mobile-first user base. Everybody in crypto is using Telegram, and so the fact that you can have applications that can be directly used in there, I think, is very attractive for the TON ecosystem. And then the other one, which I think really has a strong community, would be Berachain that's coming out. I always hear a lot about Berachain, and I think there's a few other founders I talk to who have a really high conviction about launching versions of their protocol on Berachain. So those would be two others that I would keep an eye on as we head into 2025.
As we approach the end of 2024, Sid Powell highlights a huge shift in the market. Demand for leverage is skyrocketing. Hedge funds, exchanges, and traders are all scrambling for more stablecoins to leverage their positions in major crypto assets like Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum. Powell discusses how platforms like Binance have launched new stablecoins aimed at delta-neutral strategies. This trend points to a bullish environment, with traders rotating out of stablecoins and into high-growth assets. But what does this mean for the market going into 2025? Powell believes that as DeFi continues to grow and regulatory changes bring more attention to the sector, stablecoins will thrive. But only the strongest stablecoins will make it. Will your portfolio be ready for this transformation?
It'd definitely be nice to have another DeFi summit.
Wouldn't it?
You know, I have fond memories of the last one, and I also remember 2023 DeFi being relatively unloved in favor of infrastructure. But what I think is positive for DeFi is, you know, you have the potential change in regulatory leadership, which really was a bit of a dampener on growth and development and adoption of DeFi over 2022 and 2023. So I think that's what I look at as somebody who's in the DeFi sector as a real positive catalyst and why I think DeFi will re-rate. You know, you also have the president-elect had launched a DeFi protocol, so I think that also suggests positive sentiment from the incoming administration towards it. And I continue to see that DeFi is one of the sectors that has the most adoption from users. You know, when it comes to, so you have certain core DeFi primitives like trading. So you've got Uniswap is obviously very well known, and then you have lending and borrowing, and so you have Aave, Spark, Compound. But these are widely used around the world by retail users. So when you have a, you know, if you're holding a small cap DeFi token, by and large, the best place to trade that is going to be Uniswap. So that is very real user adoption. And you can see that in the fees that are coming through on some of these DeFi protocols. So Athena, Uniswap, these are consistently generating very strong revenues at a protocol level. And I think the market will recognize that. But I would say that those core users tend to be more retail users, probably more offshore from the US, but it's people who have a genuine interest in getting savings or yield. They're holding stablecoins like USDC or USDT, and they're concerned about inflation in their local currency. So they love DeFi as a way to preserve purchasing power and manage their savings. That is very true. But I think if you unpack that statement, you'll see why is DeFi not more used within the US? And it is indeed because there's been more of a hostile regulatory environment towards it. So I think that change will allow more people within the US to use it. It's you know, it's very common that when you try and log into a DeFi app, if you're in the US like us, it'll tell you that it's blocked in your jurisdiction. So I think if you had the possibility of, you know, not having to geo-block the US and making it more available to US users, they're very tech savvy, they have a high degree of savings, they're generally early adopters of new technology. And so I think you'd see a large increase in the user base within the US. And the big thing that really interests me as well, coming from an institutional background, is institutional adoption. You know, I think we really saw a massive step forward when BlackRock launched the tokenized BUIDL fund, and then it was integrated by teams like Ondo. And so I would love to see more institutional partnerships like that. And I think that would be a huge catalyst for the DeFi sector in the US. What you're seeing is that as I mentioned earlier, we're heading into this more of this bullish environment. And so people don't want to be sitting in stables. They prefer to be long the market. So they want that capital appreciation from Bitcoin or Solana or ETH or TON. And so they're selling stable coins to buy into those assets. Whereas when people expect the market to turn down, you see them taking profits. So selling those assets for stable coins, then looking to earn yield on them. I think more stable coins are very bullish because it does bring more liquidity that people can use to then buy those assets. But I would say in the short term, what you're seeing is people are rotating effectively out of what you would call fixed income and into growth assets like, you know, large cap and mid cap tokens. What we are seeing though is that there's a massive proliferation of new stablecoins. Revolut's entering the market, Ripple's entering the market, Binance just launched a new one as well. So I think that is definitely a trend to keep an eye on. I think the ultimate answer is that we don't need all of these different ones. And similar to any kind of infrastructure frenzy, what you're going to see is that a lot of people are entering this market, and like railways and canals in the past, it will take a lot of investment from these players to try and achieve scale. And at the end of the day, there will only be a few winners. I don't think there is room in the market for 10 different US dollar stablecoins. And so I think it's good for consumers in that it will bring costs down, bring more availability of stablecoins. But I think it's probably a bad move for a lot of these companies trying to enter the market perhaps a little bit too late. I think, Circle, Tether, even to some extent PayPal and Paxos, these were the early adopters of stablecoin. They kind of cemented a bit of a market position. It will be hard to catch up that ground. I look at, I do think stablecoins in any investor's portfolio are good to have because it just gives you some flexibility to dollar cost average or tactically enter new positions. And so I think I would advise people to hold some stablecoin allocation heading into 2025. Well, I think definitely the two largest are in the strongest position. position, so USDC, USDT. And then I think if you are going to bring a new stablecoin to the market, you better have a really strong balance sheet. So I think PayPal has a natural advantage in this respect. I mean, they were able to spend tens of millions of dollars on marketing. And then you've got Ripple and Revolut. Both, I think, have strong balance sheets in order to push the growth and customer acquisition cost. But it is hard to get that adoption. So I think PayPal already has a massive install base, potentially Ripple and Revolut, but it may be a struggle. I think it could be a struggle really beyond the top three. So options, having the ability to do options gives large institutions more flexibility to hedge and manage risk positions. So what that can allow them to do is come into the market and participate in a larger way. Previously, if it was going to take you, days to hedge out a position, then you might, if you were a large institution, say a Millennium or a Citadel or any of these other large trading shops, you might think twice about the size that you would put on into that position. But now with the ability to use options, you can hedge much more effectively. These are a mainstay of traditional financial markets. And so I think it signals the growing maturity of Bitcoin's place within regulated financial markets. And it also signals that now that institutions have that ability to hedge, you are going to see a lot more participation and a lot more entry from those more mainstay traditional finance firms into the Bitcoin ecosystem. What you're able to do with options is either generate yield on your Bitcoin position by doing call overriding, or without actually putting much of your balance sheet in, you can get that upside exposure through the purchase of call options or the use of puts to kind of hedge your downside. So that is really what an options instrument like IBIT opens up here.
Stablecoins are rapidly becoming the backbone of crypto trading and finance, and as Sid Powell explains, they're more important than ever. The market's momentum is building, and institutions are increasingly entering the space with fresh capital. But only a few stablecoins will survive the coming competition. As we head into 2025, the decisions you make now could define your investment strategy for years to come. Stay ahead of the curve, and don't miss out on this pivotal shift in the market.